Secret of the Housemaid Episode 2. The sun from the UK early the next morning. Precious woke up before everyone else. The sky was still dark and the house was silent. She carried a bucket of water and a mop into the big sitting room because Madam had ordered that every corner of the
mansion must shine before her son
arrived from the UK. Precious began scrubbing the floor slowly and carefully. She cleaned under the chairs, the tables, and even the corners nobody ever checked. Sweat rolled down her face, but she did not stop working. While Precious was cleaning, Madam suddenly walked into the room. Her eyes moved around the sitting room looking for faults. Then she shouted loudly, "Precious!" Precious quickly stood up and answered softly, "Yes, ma." Madam pointed angrily at the window and said, "Look at the dust. Are you blind? Clean it again." Precious nodded quickly and said, "Yes, ma." She quietly picked up the cloth and started cleaning the window again. Outside in the compound, the other maids were sweeping the yard and arranging flowers at the entrance of the mansion. One of the maids, named Ada, looked toward the window where Precious was working and whispered, "Madam is really stressing Precious today." Another maid shook her head and said it is because her son is coming back from the UK. They all looked quietly at Precious, who was still working without complaining. Many hours later, the entire house looked beautiful. The floors were shining and the furniture looked perfect. Precious stood quietly near the staircase, feeling very tired but also happy that the house was finally clean. Suddenly, the sound of a car was heard at the gate. A shiny black car slowly drove into the compound. One of the maids shouted excitedly that Madam's son had arrived. All the maids quickly rushed to stand in a line to welcome him. Precious stood quietly at the back of the line, wiping her hands on her old apron. The car door opened slowly, and a tall, handsome young man stepped out. He was wearing a simple white shirt and dark glasses. Madam quickly ran toward him with a big smile and hugged him happily and welcomed him back from the UK. The young man smiled warmly and said he had missed her. As he walked into the house, his eyes moved around the mansion. Everything looked neat and shining. He smiled and said the house looked amazing. Madam smiled proudly and said of course, because her maids cleaned everything. As he continued walking, his eyes suddenly stopped on Precious, who was standing quietly behind the other maids. Her clothes were simple and she looked shy and tired. The young man looked curious and asked who that girl was. Madam frowned immediately and replied carelessly that she was Precious, the dirtiest maid in the house. Precious immediately lowered her head in embarrassment, but the young man looked at her again carefully, as if he did not believe what his mother just said. Something about Precious made him curious, and he could not stop looking at her. Comment next for episode 3.